So what are the advantages and disadvantages of putting your photography out there on YouTube? Well, today I thought I'd do a very quick video where I discuss 3 advantages and 3 disadvantages to putting your photography out there on YouTube. Now, number one, and probably the most commonly cited, is it's a distraction from your stills photography. Now, you're out there trying to shoot an amazing landscape or a street scene or a portrait, and you're also faffing about with video equipment, with microphones, with extra tripods, trying to capture something of that moment in which you're supposed to be fully engrossed. Now, that is a disadvantage. You will not be able to focus 100% of your time on the still image, although there are ways you can actually help that by perhaps videoing first and then going through the motions of showing how you capture the scene before actually getting on and shooting the stills. That can help. But there's no doubt about it. If you're making a video whilst also trying to capture that still image, it is going to be a compromise. Something will have to give. Unless you say, I'm not going to actually video this scene, I'm going to talk about it later. But to be honest, you're not going to get the same impact and people aren't going to be as engaged with your video. So yes, number one, distraction from the still photography. Now, the second reason why you may not want to put yourself out there on video is that you'll end up contradicting yourself. You see, if you do enough videos over a long enough period, you are bound to say something which contradicts an earlier statement made on a video years earlier, perhaps. I've done this a number of times and people have pulled me up saying, hang on a minute, Steve, you said you don't want to push films because it decreases the quality, and now you're telling us to push films. Or you may say, unwisely, I'm never going to shoot digital again. Lo and behold, you're out there shooting digital 6 months later. People have quite long memories if they follow your output, and we're all going to do it from time to time. I mean, the more videos you put out, and I've done a couple of hundred, the more chance you have of saying something which contradicts you and perhaps makes you look a little bit foolish, or maybe even look like you're pushing one side or one argument in favor of another, potentially for commercial gain, sponsorship, whatever. So it can somewhat undermine your credibility. Now, the third and possibly the worst aspect of capturing your photo adventures on video and putting them on YouTube is being labeled a YouTuber. Now, YouTuber may be seen as a compliment or an insult depending on your point of view, and you may see yourself as a serious stills photographer, and somebody suddenly says, oh, you're just a YouTuber. You know, you just do this for getting likes and subscribes, and you don't take the still photography seriously. And that could be a valid criticism in some case. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who prefer to see themselves as a YouTuber, and the stills photography is sort of a secondary thing, and maybe they'll move on to something else in the future. But from my own perspective, I put my videos out on YouTube. I don't class myself as a YouTuber, although obviously by definition I am, because here I am putting a video out to you on YouTube. But the still image for me comes first. It's all about capturing those amazing scenes in a static image. The video, however, is very important to me. I made no bones about it that I enjoy making videos. And long before I made videos for YouTube, I was capturing snippets of my trips to remember them. So although you may think people aren't taking you seriously, that is one of the downsides to putting yourself out there on YouTube. It can't be helped. All you got to do is shrug it off and get on with it and show people what you're all about and show them your still images. So what are the advantages of being on YouTube? The first one for me is actually the reason I got into doing YouTube in the first place. It's making a record of my trips, of my photo adventures. I decided sort of maybe 15, 20 years ago that I would like to somehow capture the mood and the feeling of being out in nature, not just with the still image, but also by showing some behind the scenes footage of what it was to be out in those conditions, you know, sort of arriving, parking up, trudging through the snow or the wind and the rain, and having that to watch back later. Now, I like to watch back certain videos I've made in the past because they remind me of those days, more so in many cases than the still image. The still image may be manipulated later to present a certain view of things, but you can't beat seeing a bit of video footage of that day. And I love looking back on some of my trips. I don't like looking back at all of them because some of them are blooming awful, but I do enjoy that record. And even if I stop publishing on YouTube in the future, it won't stop me actually capturing a record of my trips. I record my holidays. I don't put them out here. I've just been to Malaysia. Fantastic. So many photographic opportunities. But the video I made there is a holiday video. It's not for everybody else to see. I like capturing what I do and how I go about it. It's a video diary. Now, the next reason may not be an obvious one to many of you, but actually putting videos out on YouTube makes you more workmanlike in many ways. It makes your photography more professional because, you see, you've got almost a duty to show the trip in the best ways you can, whether that be it's a disaster, my equipment got broken, I got soaked, or whether it was like, this is the most amazing location I've been to, the light's fantastic. You've got to put that together at the same time as capturing those still images I mentioned earlier. Now, that makes you focus very much on getting on with the job. Before I did YouTube, I would sometimes turn up at a location and I'd think to myself, well, can I be bothered getting out of the car today? It looks pretty miserable. I'm not really in the mood. Oh, I'm warm here. I've got snacks. I've got a coffee. But when you start doing YouTube, you'll probably get out of that car and you will crack on and do that video. I actually say it to myself, I actually do say it while I'm sat in the car. Come on, Steve, get out there and go out and make a video. And then that sort of leads me into taking the still images. So I feel I've got a job to do. Now, this is something professionals in all lines feel. You go to work, I'm not a photographer, I work in IT. And you have to get out there and do the job, no matter how you feel. And once you get into it, it's not so bad. You become professional. You get that mindset of delivering results. And it's no different with YouTube. You get your GoPro and you get your microphones and you get yourself all wired up and you come back and you spend hours putting that video together. It makes you more professional, more workmanlike. And I think that carries over into your still photography. And in many ways, I think it actually makes you take more pictures, and certainly pictures you wouldn't have taken had you just been there for the stills. Now that leads me on to my third and final advantage of being a YouTube photographer. Now that is, it makes me shoot in bad weather. Now, bad weather is something which we all know produces good images. If you're out there in wind, rain, snow, gales, etc., many of the images are, for me, my best images. They're the ones which I look back on and go, wow, I'm so pleased I went out in those conditions and took those shots. However, had I not been making a video, there are times, and this is true before I started YouTube when I was much younger then, where I'd arrive at a location, I'd look out the window of the car, see the rain beating down against it, and I would turn around and go home. Or more likely, I would look at a weather forecast and I would say, tomorrow, it's not going to be the best of conditions. I'm going to get cold, wet and windy. Do I really want to be out in that? Or do I want to be sat here, with one of the cats on my lap watching reruns of old war films? Fantastic. But with the video in mind and with bad weather, and I know bad weather makes good photos, I will push myself. Now, last year, Robin and I actually chose a bad weather day to go out and photograph because we knew bad weather would deliver good photographs, and it certainly did. And I was keen to actually capture that on video. And I'm not sure I would have been as keen had I just been shooting the stills. So preparing for bad weather, wrapping your camera up in a plastic bag and taking a waterproof action cam potentially gets me out in conditions which I previously didn't shoot in. So I now shoot more in bad weather than I have ever shot before. And I think actually a lot of those videos are my best, and I certainly get some great feedback from them. So it's improved my photography by encouraging me to go out and show people what you can get in bad weather. So there you go, 3 advantages and disadvantages to being a YouTube photographer, or putting your photography out there on YouTube if you don't want to be a YouTuber. Your mileage may vary, you might have different opinions. That's what it's all about. So hope this was useful for you. Some of those who you may be thinking of putting yourself on YouTube, have a go. If you don't like it, don't do it. Anyway, as ever, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.